On a night when chaos reigned, a ferocious tiger broke free. But it wasn't the fear that took over. It was the unexpected bond formed with a woman and her baby that no one could have predicted. The storm came out of nowhere, the skies suddenly shifting from a clear blue to a swirling, dark mass of clouds. The winds picked up, pushing the trees into twisted, wind-whipped shapes as rain fell in heavy, relentless sheets. The zoo's lights flickered as the storm slammed into the city, and the air grew thick with the smell of wet earth and the cold bite of the wind. Inside the Bronx Zoo, the usual sounds of a quiet evening were replaced by the groaning of the power systems and the harsh metallic sounds of alarm bells. The floodlights stuttered, then died. It was in this sudden darkness that Raja, the zoo's most feared animal, seized his chance. The powerful tiger paced in his enclosure, his massive paws pressing against the cold bars, the shadows beneath his sleep, striped for shifting with every movement. With the wind howling through the zoo, no one heard the low growl building in Raja's throat as he tested the weakened lock. With a single swipe, his claw tore through the chain, and the cage door gave way with a loud clang. Outside, the zoo security system failed catastrophically. The power went out, sending the entire zoo into a state of disarray. Sirens began to wail, adding to the confusion. The storm intensified and panic set in. The call came down. Raja had escaped. The most dangerous predator in the zoo, a creature that had once been described as a ticking time bomb, was free. In the heart of the city, miles away, Grace was pulling her baby close, her heartbeat quickening at the sound of sirens that cut through the storm. She had just finished her grocery shopping and was trying to hurry home, pushing the stroller through the rain-soaked streets. Her baby, Noah, nestled on a blanket, was barely making a sound, his small fingers curling around her coat. The city felt different now. There was a strange urgency in the air, like something had shifted, but she couldn't put her finger on it. She passed by people in a hurry, heads down, eyes filled with the same unease she was beginning to feel. The storm was growing worse, the winds louder and the rain heavier. But there was something else, something that was lurking in the distance. As Grace rounded the corner, she paused for just a moment, her breath catching in her throat. There was a strange quiet that had settled over the street, a deep silence that only seemed to be broken by the storm itself. It felt as though time had slowed. Her eyes darted to the park ahead, where the trees were bending under the force of the wind. For just a second, she thought she saw something move, a flicker of shadow against the white chaos of storm. She didn't know what it was, but her heart skipped a beat. A cold shiver ran down her spine. She was still trying to shake off the unease when the streetlights blinked out. Darkness stretched out before her. Grace pushed forward, taking a deep breath, determined to get home before the storm grew worse. Her baby's quiet breath seemed to calm her nerves. She was just a few steps from her building when she heard it. Soft at first, then growing louder, the crunch of heavy paws on snow. She froze. The noise wasn't coming from the storm. It was coming from behind her, from the park, just beyond the trees. She held her breath, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of sound. It was the unmistakable sound of something large, something dangerous moving through the snow. She was standing in the street now, every instinct telling her to move, to run, but her feet wouldn't move. Something inside her told her that what she heard wasn't just a stray dog or a lost animal. It was something else. The wind howled again, cutting through the night like a knife. Her grip tightened around the stroller, her heart pounding, and her eyes darted back toward the park. It was then that she saw it, a flash of amber eyes glowing in the dark, the unmistakable shape of a massive, powerful creature moving gracefully through the shadows, every muscle taut and rippling beneath the sleek coat of fur. It was impossible to mistake what she was seeing. Raja, the tiger, was here, and he was moving toward her. The rain had softened, but the wind still howled through the empty streets, tugging at Grace's coat and pushing her hair into her face. She held the stroller steady, her eyes scanning the path ahead, trying to keep a steady rhythm despite the growing sense of unease that had settled in her chest. The city around her felt strange, almost suspended in time. There was a quietness, despite the storm, that she couldn't shake, a feeling that something wasn't right. The streets were empty, save for a few hurried pedestrians, their faces hidden beneath hoods or scarves, too focused on her own hurried pace to notice anything out of the ordinary. But Grace couldn't ignore it. As she walked, she could hear the soft rustling of the wind through the trees in the park nearby, the branches creaking under the weight of the storm. For a moment, she thought she saw something moving in the shadows. A flicker, a shape, but when she looked again, it was gone. She told herself it was just the storm playing tricks, the way the shadows dance in the wind. Still, she couldn't help but quicken her pace, her steps light and careful as she moved closer to the park entrance. Her thoughts were interrupted by a faint sound, a low rustling, like the movement of something large brushing against the ground. It wasn't the wind, it wasn't the trees, it was something else. She stopped, the hairs on the back of her neck rising, her heart thudding louder in her chest. She glanced behind her, but all she could see was the street, dimly lit by the weak glow of the streetlights. The sound came again, closer this time, unmistakable in its heaviness. Grace turned her head, and for a brief moment, she swore she saw a pair of glowing amber eyes staring back at her from the shadows of the park. Her breath caught in her throat, and her instinct screamed for her to move, to run. But she couldn't. Her feet felt frozen to the pavement, her body locked in place. There, in the midst of the storm, a wild animal was watching her, its gaze unwavering. Raja, the tiger, was no longer the sleek, controlled predator he had once been in the zoo. Now, disoriented and desperate, he moved through the park with awkward grace, each step slow and calculated. The storm had disoriented him, the city noises overwhelming. He was out of his element, unsure of where to go, what to do. The primal urge to flee pulsed through him, but something else kept him from running. The scent of the woman, the warmth that lingered around her, held his attention. As he moved deeper into the shadows, Raja felt a familiar pang of hunger, but it wasn't the hunger for prey that drove him closer. There was something about the woman that intrigued him, something about the soft way she moved, the slow rhythm of her steps, that called to him. As the distance between them shortened, his instincts shifted, replaced by something less predatory. The tension in his body eased slightly, and for a fleeting moment, the tiger paused. He studied her, his amber eyes narrowing as he watched her, her soft breath rising and falling as she stood frozen, unaware of the beast so close behind her. Grace didn't move, her heart racing as the tiger's gaze locked onto hers. The world seemed to stop in that moment, the noise of the storm muffled by the heavy silence that had settled between them. Her breath caught in her throat as the animal stepped forward, its massive form casting a long shadow over the pavement. She didn't know why she didn't run. Perhaps it was the stillness in the air, or the strange calm that seemed to radiate from the tiger. Perhaps it was the way his eyes, glowing in the darkness, held something that didn't feel threatening. For the briefest of moments, there was no fear. There was no tension. There was only the quiet connection that passed between them. Something deep and primal. Grace instinctively stopped, her body rooted in place, her heart pounding as she stared back into the tiger's eyes. Raja, sensing no immediate threat, took another cautious step forward, his muscles tense but relaxed. For the first time in hours, he was still, the sound of his breathing mixed with the quiet rustling of the storm, both of them caught in a fragile balance of an encounter neither expected. Grace's fingers tightened around the stroller handle, and she slowly exhaled, her mind racing. Was this a dream? Was it possible to feel such a deep, inexplicable bond in the midst of such a dangerous encounter? The tiger's gaze softened slightly, and in that silent exchange, Grace understood something she couldn't explain. There was no malice in those eyes. There was no fear. There was only the quiet awareness of two beings sharing the same moment in the wildest of storms. Grace's hands trembled as she slowly, almost imperceptibly, reached for the stroller. She could feel the weight of her baby in her arms, the tiny warmth of Noah's body against the chill of the air, but her fingers were cold as ice. The tiger, still watching her from the shadows, hadn't moved. His eyes locked onto hers, glowing amber in the darkness. In the quiet, the only sound she could hear was the wind, howling around them, whipping the trees in the park and sending a thin layer of snow swirling through the air. The city felt miles away, the tension between them stretching the moment into eternity. with every breath. Grace could feel the weight of what was happening, a stark contrast between the quiet intimacy of the night and the danger that loomed just a few feet away. She could sense Raj's power, the muscles that rippled beneath his fur, his stillness almost as unsettling as the growl that had vibrated through the night earlier. Her heart pounded, each beat loud in her ears, but she knew she couldn't make any sudden moves. The tiger seemed to sense her hesitation, his eyes narrowing, the softest flicker of recognition crossing his gaze. His body, tense and poised, began to soften in the most subtle of ways. Raj's ears twitched slightly, and he lowered his head just a fraction, as though acknowledging her vulnerability, as though he understood the fragility of the life she held so close. The brutal, terrifying predator that had been a part of every nightmare now seemed to pause, as if reconsidering the weight of his own instincts. Grace's breath caught in her chest. She had expected fear. She had prepared for terror. But this was something entirely different. The animal's gaze, once filled with raw intensity, now seemed almost thoughtful. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The tiger's eyes never left hers, but there was no malice in them, no hunger. He wasn't the ferocious, unstoppable force that she had imagined. His muscles still coiled beneath his fur, but there was a soft stillness in his posture that confused her. There was a connection in that gaze, a strange, unexpected understanding. She felt it, a quiet realization blossoming within her chest. The wind carried the scent of the storm, of wet earth and leaves, but it was Raj's scent, strong, primal, that dominated the air around them. Grace, feeling the tremble in her fingers, whispered softly to her baby, her voice a thin thread of sound in the vast, frozen silence. She wasn't sure what she was saying, only that she needed to speak, to calm herself, to calm Noah. Her words came out low, comforting, as if her voice could somehow bridge the gap between the wild and the human. "It's okay, baby. It's okay." The tiger's eyes flickered briefly to the stroller, his focus shifting from her to the child she held so close. For a moment, Grace could have sworn she saw something softer in his gaze. Then, with a slight movement, Raj had turned his massive head away, his eyes never leaving her as he took a cautious step back. His muscles rippled beneath his coat, his powerful frame seeming to shrink into the shadows. His movements were deliberate, careful, as though he was making a choice, a decision to retreat. The tension in the air shifted, ever so slightly, and Grace allowed herself to breathe. She didn't move immediately, still unsure whether to believe what had just happened. The tiger, Raja, had chosen to walk away. No sudden attack, no violent strike. He had retreated into the park, his silhouette blending with the darkness, vanishing as quickly as he had appeared. Grace stood frozen, her heart still pounding in her chest, her hands clutching the stroller. She didn't dare look away, even as the shadows swallowed the tiger's form. Her mind raced to make sense of it all. How had this encounter, which should have ended in terror, turned into something else entirely? She had expected a predator to strike, but instead, she had faced something else. A moment of unspoken respect, of recognition between two creatures, bound by the wild unknown that surrounded them. She stood there for what felt like an eternity, her eyes still searching the darkness for any sign of the beast. But Raja was gone, leaving nothing but the memory of those amber eyes and the quiet, peaceful stillness that had replaced the fear. The storm still raged around her, but the world had shifted, if only for a moment. Grace breathed deeply, feeling the weight of the silence settle over her. The bond between them, brief as it had been, was something she would never forget. It had been a meeting of lives, fragile and fleeting, yet connected in a way she couldn't fully explain.